Hello, welcome to the stream. Let's sorry. Hope the sound works also. I noticed I muted my microphone previously. I'm planning to actually start quite directly. Who have I have here? T Slater said hi. Welcome to the stream. So, today's challenge should probably jump straight into it and look at the challenge. I moved myself to the middle of the screen today, by the way, because on the right I have the statistics in Excel. So to be able to see how many cells have been counted, for example, it's nice to have it to the right. But still, I need to have the sheets available to be able to put input on to see which sheet I have. So let's jump into the problem. 7 viewers. Welcome to the stream, everyone. I really appreciate it. And if you have any just to be clear, if you have any questions or if you just curious something, if you want something explained, please ask. One of the things about advanced code is about learning programming, and as much as I like to actually learn something by doing those problems in Excel, I also like to teach others. Which means that if you have any questions, if you're curious about something, if you want something explained why I'm doing anything, just feel free to ask. I will try to explain it. I noticed that I forgot to start one program that I want to have, just by that reason. And also, I want to connect my pen to be able to draw, which I forgot to do. But that's fine. Just going to connect it over here. So today's great. And I don't need those. If you're curious about Advent of Code, you have the information about Advent of Code in the chat. If you have any questions about this problem in particular or Advent of Code in general, feel free to ask. I've been playing for this is my second year, so I've up in a couple of points already. As you might have seen if you follow my progress, I have solved all the puzzles up to this day in Excel, even though I didn't stream. The last 2 days was a few minutes per puzzle, so I didn't think it was worth streaming. If you're curious about my progress, you can actually go to my GitHub page. If I think that should be the correct address to my repository, where I'm uploading continuously all the solutions I have. So feel free to follow and look there too. And this problem, I have not tried to solve it yet. So let's see what happens. Yeah, okay. The last problem was about they wanted to take the go to the airport, and now we are at the airport because in Advent Code there is a story. I really recommend you to read through the puzzles to read the story. You don't need to have the story to actually solve the puzzles, but it's really fun. So you're at the airport, should check in and grab the North Pole credential instead of the passport. They are quite similar, so North Pole credentials is issued by counter and therefore aren't actually valid documentation for travel in most of world. It seems that you're not only having this problem though. Where long lines formed. And okay. A very long line is formed for automatic passport scanners, and the delay could upset the travel initial itinerary. Okay. I can't pronounce that word. Due to some question about network security, you realize that you might be able to solve both those problems at the same time. The automatic passport scanners are slow because they're having trouble detecting which passport have all the required fields. The expected fields are as follow: birth year, issue year, expiration year, height, hair color, eye color, passport ID, and country. Passport data is validated in batch files, your puzzle input. Each passport is represented as a sequence of key colon value pairs separated by space or new lines. Passport is separated by blank lines. Okay. To start with, a batch file is basically, as explained here, a file where you have multiple jobs that you should process at the same time. It's quite common actually to use them in manual operations. For example, if you record statistics from a store or something, you can get a batch file and enter it with all the operations you need to count and then the processing of that. They are usually having a quite strict format, more strict than it's here. And to be honest, it seems like processing this file will be the real challenge, since generic string operations is not the strong point of Excel. So I'm going to have to be creative to actually do this. So, right. We'll see. The first passport is valid. Okay. So the first issue I'm going to have is not really to solve the puzzle itself, but actually to be able to just make sense of the data in some format that is addressable by Excel, which is best processable in Excel. Fisogs, welcome to stream. Nice to have you here. You're stuck at day 3. That was quite fun actually. It was about doing a sled, what's called it, to go. It was really fun. This one, the toboggan trajectory. When you get hang of model operations, it's not really that. I think it would be quite fun. I got here sim time. Well, we haven't really started yet. I just read through the puzzle, basically. Nope. I'm not gonna do that. So, you are here in time. I'm just reading through. And if you have already read through it, it's no problem. You can actually read through it yourself over there. So count the number of valid passports. Those have all the required field. Treat CID as optional. So counter ID should be optional. Otherwise, you should count all the passports. So I want to get to a format in Excel where I have one passport per line. So I'm going to do parsing for it. Yes, I participated last year actually, and that was my first year. I got introduced to add code, and it's really fun. You can put it on any level. So I've put it on a level so that I solved all the puzzles in Excel. You have the puzzles in my GitHub account. I think it's under my a link. I think I put a link in my Twitch page also. Let's see. I think there is a. Yeah, I have on my Twitch profile page. There is a link to my Twitch account, to my GitHub, and where I have all the solutions. And it was really fun to do in Excel. The later puzzles was quite hard actually, especially in a non-programming language. So let's do some prosing. I'm actually going to start off by parse this information, because I'm going to usually dig directly into my normal input data. Yes, they are, but don't be afraid by it, because sorry. In the beginning, there are a lot of those puzzles where you just manage data parsing and so on. But some puzzles, not all puzzles, but a few puzzles start really simple, and then a few days later they refer to the previous puzzle. They build up something, and most puzzles are oriented around one problem statement. So if you can identify that problem statement, you can actually read up on just that statement, which means that you can actually learn one algorithm, for example, per puzzle. And I really recommend that. It's really they are not that hard to solve in a nice way, but you can add up to hyper optimize it or something, and then they start getting harder. For example, one algorithm I suggest you read up on is the Dijkstra shortest path algorithm. And that's quite useful. And then also the Reddit. People are there to help. So which means that don't feel that you have to do it on your own if you just get stuck. It's my advice. So we call this input. I'm thinking that I want to have, but also FaceHogs, you look at last year's and then look at the later go through the later puzzles. You can see what you're up for, but keep up on it. Day 18 from last year was really 18.2. Yeah, 18 was one of the problems I had most problem with. Due to, I think that was the day where my Excel sheet got to 54 megabytes. So for the first time, I want to have each passport on a single line, not necessarily on a consecutive line in the beginning, but I want to have them just on one single line. So I want to remove all the line breaks. To do so, I'm going to do process 1. I'm going to pre-process. Let's call it pre-1. I am going to start off each line by taking the previous line. Okay, the first line I'm going to just to put a space in. And the second line is going to be previous line. I think that's how you concatenate with this line. No, not that one. Input A1. Yeah, it should be just be like that. And oh, Eric. Thanks for the sub. And welcome to the stream. I thought you didn't want to stream Excel. Look at the Excel stream. So I'm trying to solve this puzzle. In this case, to be able to convert all the input lines to be able to 2 months already. I didn't remember that you subscribed. Welcome. And a hype blob, love it. So to batch them together, first step is going to just be concatenate everything. So if I start with this, each passport will just add up. So the first line, if that line is going to be empty, and I add a space in between, I will be able to get all the fields right. No worries. The problem is when the input line is empty, I need to be able to flush it. Awesome. So in the case the input, if input equals something happened to my keyboard. Then I'm going to keep an empty line instead of the actual line. Which means that in this case, I know that this line will be the full passport. 11 viewers, lot of new viewers. I see that you are joining. So please read up on Adam Foucault, the current puzzle. I'm just starting to pre-process data, and I'm thinking about every half an hour just to recap what I'm doing. So feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to do a recap. So this means that this line, this line, this line, and this line will be all the data from each passport. And I also want to be able to identify if it's actually the full data. So I'm going to shift it to do the line before if is empty. If the line afterwards is empty, meaning that I can simply, I have a marker on each one of those lines that are valid, the full set of passport. But I want to be able to extract it so I have just the set of full passports, which means that I want some kind of enumeration. It doesn't have to be, I'm just thinking ahead a little bit now. So if I can get some way to actually get out a list of all the lines that are valid, I can actually do it by looking at it. If it's empty, I can get the row number. Otherwise, I get a huge number. So now I have a small number on each line that has a valid passport. I might even be better as to put an empty string. So the next one is the input processed. So that means if I can get a list of all those numbers, I am able to get a, if I just can add get the all the, yeah, if I can get those numbers, I get the line numbers, the row numbers for my passport. Which means that I can actually do it by being able to sort it. Just guessing currently. So this indexes, and sort is a trick available using the sort function, small function, and a1. Which means that in this case, I take the set of B column, which will end up being an increase in just the row numbers for passports. And then I take the first lowest number, which is 3. The second lowest number will increase, and I get not number. So currently I have a set of all the available passports. I don't like that those are flagged as passports. I need to filter those out also. So I'm going to say that if the line is empty, but input A1 is not empty, and if not is like that here, I filter those out. Just because then I check that the current line is actually a valid passport. So afterwards, those are not treated as valid, because I need data there but not there to treat as a passport. In this case, I got 4 passports, and I can then look up the actual value, which means that I'm going to do offset from the line before. Number of rows is the column number, not that one. It's going to be that number. Right. And I need to offset it by columns too. But since offset and column offset is not same as index, because Excel starts by index 1, I have to add 1, subtract 1. Which means that, sorry, I'm starting with that from there to right. Right. The problem here, this is really common when doing Excel. I have not freezed the cell number. So when I extend it, the cell number will increase to actually be relative to the position. But currently I have not freezed this one, which means that it says a reference to A1 in this case, which is correct. But this one should also be a reference to A1, which means that I'm going to freeze it and put a $sign, which means that when I out expand, it is going to stick. So I have my passport in this case, and I'm going to insert a column here. But it's not really helpful to have it processed like that, because I can't really get the data out of it, so I won't be able to address the data. I don't think I need it for this puzzle, but it really helps. So according to the problem, there are those field types. So I'm going to put them over here. So we have the BYR, the IYR, EYR, HGT, HCL, HECL, PID, and CID. So we are going to be able to extract those. We can't really just search for them in this way in Excel and get the data after. Maybe we can. So we're going to build I'm first trying to actually just locate if they are available. And I think there is a function, return the start position of one string within another text string. Find is case sensitive. So I am going to use the find operation, which makes sense. And I'm going to search for this string, but if I only search for this string, I might actually find it in, for example, name of a person. So all the strings need to be start with a space, because that's the limiter. and then this number, this text, and it should be a colon afterwards. And it should be in this string. Which means that we see that the BYR is available over here. Right, it might actually, didn't check for a colon in front, the space in front. The thing is that it might actually be correct anyway, because it might actually not be a colon anywhere else, but yeah, I need to freeze it, definitely. Thanks. So it's the 1 I'm going to freeze, and it's the C I'm going to freeze. It depends on input data. If I would make the challenge myself, I would actually definitely add, before I drag them, exactly. I would actually make some bits where I try to get people into just doing those simple those problems. One thing I'm curious about is the HCl here, because it also means when I check for space in front, the first letter here might not be a space. So looking at the input data, I have actually crafted it. You might not notice it, but when I add it up here, I take the previous line a space than the current line. But since the previous line is empty, the current line will be an empty string plus space plus the input line, which means that I actually implicitly here add that space, and that's necessary. That's really important. Otherwise, if I don't do that, those HCl will not be matched for a space HCl colon. And that's one of those things that when you do string manipulation and trying to process, try to get all the fields as uniform as possible. In this case, if I haven't done it, I had been required to do some simple optimization, some optimizations here. So there's some special cases here for fast start string. I could, if I really wanted an extra value there, which I can't forget, I could be able to. I'm sitting here laughing how it seems to actually be more straightforward than my C# solution. Yeah, that's a really interesting statement actually, because the entire reason I'm actually doing it in Excel is to be able to find those solutions. Because I feel like I'm easily get stuck at doing it as the usual way. But you can't do it there. You really need to think about what are you doing. So it's actually quite interesting. See. So this is, I'm going to actually add one extra column just for documentation, not because I need to. Start position. Then I'm going to count the field length. And in this case, I am actually going to do the same trick again. Because if I want to know the length of the string, I can actually add an extra space at the end too. I don't have it in the pre-processed data, because if I add an extra string here, I don't know if the next line will be an empty line or a non-empty line. So I'm going to add it here, just because then because then I can say that in all cases, the field length is the length up to the next space. So I am going to use the same fields here. And I'm going to do one more thing with this data over here, because when I have found the start position, I'm not interested at all in the actual header. So I'm actually going to skip 4 letters forward to start at the data. And this I can do copy, paste, and it will autofill. Really helpful. So now we have the start position of data, which I'm going to write here, of data. Sorry, I'm going to move around a bit on my desk here. My Wacom tablet was in the way. So the field length will be if I find a space within text which is the mid, and mid is a helpful operation. It's the Excel version of a substring, which means that I say that which text I'm going to use. I'm going to fill in the phrasing just after I'm writing this line. So the text, the position of the space within the rest of the string will be the length, because now with this mid function I'm going to cut off everything from the colon of the current data. I assume I'm going to double check, and I need to specify a number of characters, which is the length, which is always limited by the length of the string. So in this case, the BYR should be 6 letters. I think it might be. Let's check a write function. I don't know why I'm doing that all the time. Let's say I'm take an AND operation, write. The thing is that the write operation takes a number of characters from the write. So if I say write 5, I don't get the rest of string starting from the character 5. But if I take but I get a 5 from the end, and I know the position where I'm going to start, but not how many letters is left. So I can use the write, but then I need to do len and calculate how many letters it is. The thing is that I don't want to specify how many letters it is. I could easily just put 2000 something here. Left is the same as mid, but we start with 1. So you say that I start with first letter. So there are 3 operations basically. This is left, mid, right. Left takes the first 10 letters, for example, but you always start from beginning. Right takes the 10, for example, 10 last letters. Mid takes a midsection. What usually is available in many languages is that the length operation of the mid is optional in many languages, not in Excel. Oh no, not worry. This was a really valid question, and that's all. That question is one of those I really like, because that means someone tries to understand, and it's not easy. But I hope it was a clear description. So BYR, it says that here that it's 4, should be 4. I'm going to freeze and just double check this line manually. So C is the full text, this is going to be freezed, and D is going to be follow. So I need to keep those in the same order, because I use a relative positioning here. Let's say ECL should be 3. So I think I have 2 extra, which means that exactly here's the 2 problems. The first problem is that I'm starting to look at the position of space. So I'm not searching for position of the first letter, so it should be +5, because it's space, 3 letters, then colon. So this is the first issue, which means that I'm now down to 5. I can do, yeah, exactly. I can simply do it. I've done it quite often. So That's also valid. Let's do it like that. Less references then. And I think there's a limit of 32 kilobytes per cell, so I could actually put in 32. Sorry. 32,678. I think that would make sense also. I think that's the limit. I'm not sure, but I think it's the limit. The next thing is the length is that the offset of the space starts by 0. It starts by 1, so I need to reduce with 1 because I don't want to have the position of the next character. I want the size. So now I have all the field lengths here. So CID is 3. CID is 147, which means that this is going to be expanded also. Cool. HGT is really short in inch there, right? And this HCL is a 7, which is a... Oh, this would be really cool. Can I actually, just for fun, extract the data? And need that wider. And this is going to be mid C1. Start number is the start of data. Number of letters is that one. Oh, C3. So that's basically how you do string processing in Excel. So I have all the fields here. If there is a value error or a number error, you get this. You get an error. And I don't care about that currently. So we can add this error. There is one of those if error. Value if error. So I'm going to use a empty string instead. Looks nicer. Still get this if error. I'm gonna read the chat just in a second. Unless it crashes. Oh yeah, just learn. Yeah, it might not indicate that it's an error because the CID would be optional, if I recall correctly. But we might need it for the next handling. But it looks cleaner. I am curious, however, if I can do conditional formatting on this one and treat that as a color, just for fun, because why not? I don't think so. Data bar, no. I am going to okay, so it's just if true, so I can't do conditional formatting. I want to have the cell color actually to be the color of the data. Maybe if I say that this one is going to be format cells special. Type scientific, decimal places, custom. It's just up to handle numbers. Yeah, but the fill tab, you can do fill, so I can do. I'm not sure if there is anything else because I can set colors, but I wanted to be auto-updated, and I don't think there is. I'm curious if there is any way to use conditional formatting to do that. I know that it's possible to do with macros, but for what my goal with this advanced code is actually not to use macros, but just pure formulas. So I am going to just mark this as output, this as yellow, which is intermediate. Let's go. It's going to be input. Cool. Going to tighten this up a bit. Great. So this is the input, processed input. And the part 1 wants to have. I am going to just simply copy some data to have it on the same sheet. I think it was, yeah. Okay. Cool. Which means that I am going to see that is valid. Let's see what statement check said, because I forgot that. The 4 password is missed 2 fields here. The first password is valid, all 8 fields present. Second password is valid, missing the HTT. Yeah, agree. If all fields except seating, the third is only missing CID, which is valid. Okay, so I don't care about this column. So what I want to say is that all those fields are available. And for that, I'm going to do equals if count if, which means that count if is an operation where I can count the numbers, all the fields. And one, thanks for following, sizable chimp. I hope I guess you found the stream from Reddit or Discord. Oh, right. I guess you redeemed the use an emote. I appreciate it. I'm actually flying I did some drone flying, and I was planning to do some drone streams, which was the reason I was planning to build up 3 emotes, which made a full drone, but haven't got to it. So that's on my to-do list. So, but now I'm doing this Advanced Code December, so I'm going back to other streaming after December. I'm planning, but for this December, I'm going to use Advanced Code a couple of times a week. So if you want to stay after that, I'm happy for it, but I won't take it personally if you unsubscribe or unfollow afterwards either. So I'm going to check if any of those fields are not empty, which would be like that. It's not. This doesn't make sense. If they are empty. And like it was just copy paste. Yeah. I personally like the puzzles where you need to think about outside the box and do some algorithms. So in the beginning it's just warm up. So for me this is basically just to I never use Excel, to be honest. Otherwise, I'm a software engineer, so I write embedded C basically, and which means that I have a lot of Python at work also. I'm trying to do some projects where I'm using JavaScript too. So for me, since Advanced Code is about learning, I wanted to try I want to do something that I really need to push my limits and think outside the box and try to think in other ways. So, but I can imagine in the beginning it's basically warm up. So for me, it's just warm up to get to see if I can get anything running. It doesn't make sense because if we count... Hi Triceratops, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining. And we have a couple of new, so just for everyone new, this is what you're going to do, what you're doing. Yeah, I probably should try to learn new languages like Python, but I'm still stuck with Java. Well, you will probably learn anything else. Have you programmed for long, by the way? And is this your first year of Advanced Code? Yeah, okay, cool. Because there is, for me, it's always things that you need to look into, you need to relearn, things that I've used a couple of years ago, which I need to just remember how it works and read up on again. And there's this optimization problems where something you do it in Java or when you do it in a quote-unquote normal programming language, you can do something 500,000 times. That's no problem. It takes a half second, but no problem. But you can always try to optimize it. Try to find those parts where you can try to get down the performance. Because if you do it 500 times, when you scale it up and scale it worldwide, those times matters. And at work, since we do low power embedded, which means that we have basically a battery powered yeah, exactly. Some embedded C. It is really interesting actually. We are making, what I'm doing is basically we make a network stack for wireless sensors, which is battery powered, which means that we're doing full an IPv6 stack, which means a mesh which should be able to mesh but also be low power. And the short, it's that if you have a microprocessor, it takes about 3 milliamp of power just to process, and if you have Radeon, it takes 10 milliamps. Really rough numbers. But to be able to be battery powered, you need to get down to 10 microamps or 20 microamps, which means a factor of thousands. We need to actually use the processor just 0.1% of the time. Otherwise, we're screwed. Which means that when we think about processing power and do optimizations, it's not just to get the algorithms faster, it's also to get them more energy efficient. And since when you're doing things like for a laptop, a program for a laptop, if you get stuck with a slow algorithm that you do often, it will actually drain the battery. So to be able to do things quick is not just about responsiveness, but it's also about energy consumption. And that's one of those aspects that are really interesting. So optimization, when you think that my front application, which someone's using all the time, is fast enough, it's responsible enough. If you're going to laptop, if you're going to an iPad, if you're going to anything, a mobile phone, you will drain battery. To some extent at least. Exactly how much I can't really tell. But therefore, going back to Advanced Code to be able to optimize. Well, what are expensive operations in terms of power? It's actually a really interesting question because everything. An expensive operation is an operation which, when it goes down to actually to be able to design the algorithms. So if you use well, integer division in int code, well, that's actually a really good example. Integer, it goes down to the when you think about it as how often are you going to use the operation and what values, what input parameters, and how does it scale. Integer division in int code, integer division in general, when you don't have a hardware integer divider, is quite interesting. If you do it like the normal operation, where you do the fast way is actually to just try and error, iterate. That's where the discussion was in the Reddit post, which I guess you're referring to. Which means that if you do one operation per value, per increment, when you're dividing 200, it's double the cost as dividing 100. But if you can convert that to be able to do one bit at a time, like when you set it up in school, when you draw it like if you're trying to do it like you learn we have a value of 322 divided by 4, and you say that if you do it like this, you see that the number of operations is related to the number of digits in number. Instead of trying to say that 0 times 4 equals 0, 1 times 4 equals 4, 2 times 4 equals... I will just, by the way, set it up so like 0, 0, which means that it's 2 there. So if you try to trial and error here, now I'm writing behind my head, you will end up in a slow operation. And to know which operation to do in which case is actually one of the keys. So I had some, I will expect to see many of those. So when I go to Excel, I get to this state that if I do more than 1,000 operations, it's a huge sheet. I can do 20,000, 100,000 rows, but I can't, but that's a really significant performance impact. But I can't go past 100,000 operations. I don't want to go past 10,000 operations in Excel, which means that I need to push the boundary. And that's what I think is interesting for me. I wanted to go in the input data, but I am not going to do it because I'm going to just check if this is not empty. And then I can do equals count if this number here so now I have a number of I can go beyond the 100,000. I can even go up to a couple 100,000. There is no hard limit for what I know. Don't quote me on it because I don't know actually. But Excel sheets are stored in a when you store an Excel sheet, it's stored as an XML file, which is zipped, which means that it needs to be available in memory as a XML DOM, document object model, not an efficient, really not an efficient storage. And even though you expand it with formulas, even though you have the same formula in every cell, Excel expects you to be able to handle each cell individually, which means that even though the formula is almost the same, it doesn't really optimize by actually treating it as one formula for an entire sheet. So when you go up to 10,000, you really feel, and doing those operations I do, you really feel that it's slow. It's really sluggish. When you go up to 40,000 lines, the 45,000 rows, you actually have to do an operation and sit a couple of seconds and or possibly so and wait for it to operate. So even though it's not a hard limit, the calculations are significant. And don't get me wrong, Excel is really efficient when calculating, but just the fact that you have each cell is an individual formula, which is messy, which handles references, which means that the order of calculating each cell needs to be the correct also. So that means Excel is not really useful with formulas above that limit. But you can probably just handle data. So if you want to store 300,000 strings, it's fine. But as a programming, as Adam's code, it's not a good idea. So it is valid if there are 7 fields in those table, which means that I get two valid here. I am going to use select everything, conditional formatting, new rule, and format cells that contains equals to true. I am gonna format those field green. So I am also going to format cell value equals false, format some ugly red. That's not. I said equals to false. Apparently. Which means that I have really, to be able to fulfill this, I need to use a I think I can do like not is empty A1 because my selection starts at A1, I think. No, it doesn't. It does, because it's the top left cell. And I think that's possible. No, I'm not going to waste time on this one. It's just weird. Let's stay with this. I pressed salmon. That was really strange. I really thought explicit equals false was everything. So I'm going to count the truth in this J column, and I'm going to have a info sheet. After stream I'm going to clean this up, by the way, before pushing it. So I will have a little bit extra data. So result for. If you have seen my sheets, I usually have an info sheet, which means put a bit of how I thought the thought process, and then I put the result, so there is a result of the result. So I'm going to count if part 1 J colon J equals true. And that means I get two values. So this is valid, invalid, valid, invalid should return true too, which means is probably correct. So let's go for my real input data then. I'm going to paste that there. Not like that, because I need to want to paste it match destination formatting. And the input data is, as you see, it's much longer, so I need to extend my list. Do you have any code to allow anyone to plug in their input files without having to copy paste? No. I want my Excel sheets to be really, really clean, and which means that I really only want formulas. And most of the times it means that you need to copy paste your data into the input sheet. But as you see, I'm trying to keep, I have not followed it entirely the last year, but I'm going to try to do it as much as I can this year. So I'm going to have the input sheet just as clean. So the only thing is that paste in input, clear the data in input, paste in input, then the rest should be fine. It might need be, in this case, I don't really know if there is any difference in size of the input, which means that I don't know how long I'm going to extend it. So let's go to 12, about 1200. The input was 1100, so that should be fine for everyone, I think. So which means that this is going to be extended 30 refer to 30, which means that this is going to be extended to 1300, like that, and I get a, oh, I did say 1200. No, that's fine. Oh right, this was the 100, was the only 30? Oh right, this one needs to be extended too. Right, that was the last one there, 101. And that was just to see. Okay, so it's about 1/4 line, which means that I'm ending up with about 6,300. So let's go 500. Let's go 2000. It's small sheet, so it doesn't matter. So in this case, 108. I don't really get why it's. Oh right. Not entire sheet. I forgot the initial numbers. But since this is an increment, out increment, I need to fill everything. But I had 285, so yeah. At the end of the new lines between. Yeah, exactly. It seems like random. I just want to eyeball how many about how many it was, so I know approximate what to expect. So going to about 1000 would. It's only about an upper limit in this case. I am not going to use everything, but since I need to allocate cells in my sheet because I can't dynamically allocate them, I need to say that it's not going to be an upper limit. And in this case, I got. It seems like I got 282 passports in my input, which means that I was going for just have the same. 1001 was the last cell. I have 3 header lines. So 999 then. $999. Cool. Awesome. That means that I should have 226 valid passports. And it also makes sense because most of the passports seems to be okay. It's mostly the last column that differs. Yeah, of course. Input your. I'm going for the next puzzle part before. But if you have Excel, you can try it out on your. It will be fun if you download Excel sheets when I'm cleaned up. It seems to match also. Uh, 2 to 6. And that was the correct answer. What I'm... oh, cool. I have no clue if many have probably right the same number. But I have quite different input data between the users. Okay, so we'll see. Lines moving quickly. But you overhear the input airport security. I have not. By the way, when I wake up, I read the puzzle. I look at my input data, but I don't do anything calculations when I'm streaming, which means that I have not any clue about what the part 2 is. So for me, this is the first time I'm reading it. So it might end up with not being possible to solve, or it might be just a 2-minute solution. The lines, but you overhear the airport security talk with invalid data getting through. You can continue to ignore the CID field, but each other field must have a strict rule, which values are valid for automate. Okay. Right. To be honest, this would have been much easier to do in a normal language. For example, Python. And for what I know, Eric Wastl, actually, who's the inventor of Advent of Code, uses Perl. And Perl is basically a programming language. I won't say bad programming language, but it's a programming language that is oriented around processing data, which means that it has native support for regular expressions. So you basically program around the regular expressions. It has native support for it, so you say that if this matches that. So this would be one of those problem statements where you can use regular expressions and Perl, just the one-liners for everything. But that means that I need to do validation. On this data. And I'm going to do it directly from this input. So, to be fair, I'm going to resize my windows because I don't need the width of the Excel. Sorry. But I really need to see the input data also, the rules set. So in this case, part 2 is going to land there. It's going to be called... I'm going to delete that one because I'm going to duplicate, move a copy to end part 2. In this case, I am going to not see if it's valid in this case. I really want to be able to see the data, which means that I'm going to have a copy of the data from the beginning. And that means that this header is going there, and if is number checks whether it's valid, is a number and returns true or false. If and is number, this one, the number version, since it's a string from the beginning, a free is greater than, oh, sorry. (1920) int a free less than or equal to 2. Okay, so I don't need the if statement, by the way, because I just wanted that to be true and false. Yeah, I want that. So 1925 should be valid. And the question is, why isn't it? Let's break it down. Is it a number from the beginning? No, it's not a number. I'm just going to assume it's number and we'll see what happens. That means that's true. Does it make sense for those numbers? 2027 not valid. Not valid. Empty means invalid, not a value. So if error, it's not valid. Okay, makes sense. So that's not a number and that's not number. Right. Next one. 4 digits. By the way, 4 digits, I can manage 4 digits because that's limited also by the actual number. And between, no, and int be free. Let's double check this one for a set of numbers. And 1972. I am not going to do it in this case. If I get a... If you check here, you see that it might be empty or a number. It would technically be possible, I think, that there are 4 digits like 2010X and a letter, which means that it would not be valid. But if it's less than 4 digits, it's less than 1000. If it's more than 4 digits, it's more than 9999, which means that it's implicitly checked by the limits of the numbers. So a number that is more than 2010 and less than 2020 is definitely a 4-digit number, and anything that's not 4-digit numbers is not in that range. So I'm implicitly testing it, but I don't need to test explicitly. And the same thing goes for probably all of those. So and int, if error, and int, and this is, by the way, why I don't like Excel, because why can't we have a normal operation and like operation 1, a double ampersand, and then the next operation like a normal language? But they have a function called and. It's one of the reasons, by the way. Int C3 less than 2030 false. Also makes sense, it's a really old one. Not missing anywhere. .37 is not valid, right? It's flipped around a bit. Cool. By the way, this line is actually by reference. So I'm going to see if I can paste special instead. I'm going to copy that one because I don't want the... Let's keep the header. I want to copy paste the values, but keep the formatting. Anyway, I'm gonna reset the formatting anyway. Why can't I? This is like this instead. Cool. The height is okay. So this is going to be a messy. So I'm going to bring up an Excel helper program which is called Notepad. Equals if we want the rules to be if right. They are nice that the last two letters actually is just two letters, so it's not centimeter and an inch, which might be 4. So we can do right too. I'm going to double check if I think there is logic test 1. You can use the ifs, which means that right, in this case it's D3. I understand what you mean by not liking this part, because it's just if it's centimeter, that means that int mid D3 start by 1 len D3 minus 2. That should be the integer part. 1/5 40, and that means also I can do multi-line statements, by the way, in Excel. I can't indent with tabs. Okay, so this is the centimeter part, and the inch part would be the same. But 59 and 76, I think there should be an else statement, which is false. And this is just guesswork currently. Too few arguments for this function. Okay. So that's in the range. 166 should be not available. Exactly. And this one, 172 inches, is not valid. So probably correct. But I'm going to wrap it in if error. Just for a I hope that this makes sense. Alright, then I'm going to look at those and extend. That one is really strange. Cool. Hope there's one hair color. Okay, so let's see. Can we cheat in this one is the question. Because we can, it would be possible to check if the first letter is a hash sign and then the rest is the correct length. But I'm curious if someone put something that is hash sign than something that contains a non-hexadecimal value. Or if it is possible to parse the hex value to actually be a number. Let's say that if left let's say the statements first. Len e3 equals 7. Can't be anything else. If first letter is must be a hash sign and mid e3 to 6 I'm hex to deck. Let's double check. That's a nice one. Because I would expect some. I'm gonna copy this and just borrow this column for a while. Many of those binary operations in Excel, there are some binary and binary, binary and so. They have the problem of actually. Hi Britta, no worries, I'm doing Excel, so nice to join, at least. It's a really strange dream, so I don't actually take it personally if someone won't leave just because it's boring. So we need to handle it. We can check if it's not valid the hexadecimal sign. I'm fine. Thank you. How are you? Trying to stream some Excel every now and then now during December. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, this is what I'm doing. So it seems to be, if there's a problem, it seems to be 0. Let's see if I can just for fun. I'm going to update this later. 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, and I get an invalid number. Right, that's great. Awesome. And so this should work. Cool. Awesome, the length and everything should be. It's really, it's a lot of fun, especially if you're into programming. And I'm trying to do strange stuff, because it's fun. Last year I solved everything. So let's double check. This one is false, not valid, not valid, not valid, not valid, not valid. And 3 there shouldn't be valid. Right, cool. ECL. Okay. Or dang, F. And it's going to be just a F3 equals and equals blue. I can't see any solution. There is a choose operation, but that's for numbers. There might be some. Awesome. Thanks for bits, Britta. Really appreciate it. Gear Y. And have a nice dinner. Have a real nice dinner. And see you sometime when they playing game also. Free. And F3 equals OTH. Okay. So this is not valid, not valid. Said is not valid. Yep, seems to match up. PID, 9-digit number, including leading 0. Okay, so I'm curious if there is something here that says it's a number, because I would like not to check everything to be numbers. So I'm going to try out one thing. Int value, right, int value, nice. So it should be length of G3 equals 9 and not is error int G3. Should be a proper validation, I think. Right, and that's wrong length, I think. 8 numbers, right? 10 numbers probably, and seed is always true. And all valid is simply and I think I could just put a list like that if I know my Excel correctly. So let's fill it out. Cool. And it's basically part 2. Count the number of S's in part 2. Yeah, I can imagine. It's really need to check everything, and if you're not, things that you don't check, should be aware of why it's implicitly true. S is column S, so it's count if part 2 S equals true. 160. No, I don't, but it's hard-coded to true, because since I'm working with offsets, I could just ignore it and just skip that line because it was the last one. But let's say it had been an optional number in the middle here. And instead of using, if you do it in the normal program language, I would actually build a struct for it, or some kind of associative array, or some kind of dictionary, which means that I can refer to them as numbers, as names. In Excel, it's really hard to do anything by referring to name. It is possible. You can do a match here, get the index of the column, and so on and so on. So being optional, it's just that it's always true. It's always valid. So therefore, I want to have the full list everywhere. It's in this case it doesn't matter, but in general, it's much easier to keep consistent. So let's see if 160 is correct, and fingers crossed. I'm going to see some invalid passports. Here are some valid. Right, 160. Yep, cool. That means that I'm up to 8 stars for the day. So 1:45. I see that I have 11 viewers, so that means that it is possibly someone who's new here. If you have any questions, please ask them. Otherwise, we can just do a recap of what's done. We have an input sheet, which basically is where you paste the input. So all lines are in the input. The intention of this sheet is that it should be possible just to clear the column and then paste your new. Thanks. Thanks, Tom. The pre-1 is basically just an accumulation. So when you get, because Excel I want one row per input. So I can accumulate till the empty line to be able to identify the passports. And I'm trying to get a number, just a sequential number of the passports, of the rows, just to have something to sort on. Which means that I can identify the lines that holds a full passport. The input proc is basically input processed, which means that in this case I say that passport number can be used to sort the row numbers, so I know which rows in the pre-1 that the passport is referred to as complete passport. So I have a list of all the complete passports as one row without line breaks. And then I do string searching for the part of it by some padding and so to get out data of the fields. So I search for a start position and then field length relative to the start position, which means that I get a full table of all the data indexed by the hard-coded column headers, which is what to search for, since those were stated in the input data. And part 1 is basically to validate according to those rules, and part 2 is to do some more validation, and it's just building formulas for the validation rules to get the true or false values. So that's basically what's done. It's I would say it's one of those problems where it is, they have some quirks, but keeping straight, it's actually quite straightforward. I won't say easy, because nothing is easy when you're a beginner, or it's a lot of things is easy when you're advanced. But it is quite straightforward, at least. So I was thinking about actually wrapping up the stream, and I have no clue who actually is streaming, because I like to raid someone when I'm done. But to be honest, there are not many Excel streamers out there. So I can't raid an Excel streamer. Anyone you want, so do you have any suggestions? Science and technology probably. Let's see. I'm going to no clue. That's always a problem. Usually I have just can pick someone. So calculus, no, not that. It's always fun. Portuguese programmer, French, German, French, English. What this guy is doing. Okay, no. I have no clue what's programming, but there's a guy programming something, so I'm raiding him. Have no clue who it is, but say hi, be nice. And just be nice. So have fun.